I'm Agent Random. I'm from the planet BlackJupiter in the constellation of YouTube.com. I'm 22 years old, and I'm the one who's going to talk to you about Doctor Who right now. Alright, I know this is different than my usual shtick, and I know that my hamburger munching, 4th of July celebrating, waitstaff tipping accent probably disqualifies me from any real opinion I can have on this show. But look, I went to London a while back just to see that one police box they have there, so hopefully that can buy me at least like 30 minutes of yapping. Hopefully. Also, I have one in my house. I have loved Doctor Who practically my whole life. I mean, I'm not an absolute expert on the show, but pretend I didn't say that because I like sounding like I know what I'm talking about. What got me to finally want to talk about this show after all this time was the recent news that Disney and the BBC's deal to co-produce Doctor Who has come to a close, thus forever ruining the totally real and existent chances of getting a Doctor Who world in Kingdom Hearts. But I want to reflect back on this BBC x Disney collaboration since my rootin' tootin' yeehaw living status might give me a different perspective on things than all those posh folks across the Amy Pond. Okay, so it's 2022, right? The show is currently airing a series of specials wrapping up the story of its 13th Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker, at the end of which she'll ideally regenerate into a new Doctor like all Doctors do at the end of their tenure, and the showrunner at the time, Chris Chibnall, will relinquish his throne to some new person. I was keeping up with the show at the time, although here in America, it wasn't exactly the most convenient thing to do. See, if you wanted to keep up with online discussion for the show, you kinda had to unplug for most of the day that any new episode is airing, since new episodes aired on BBC America here during the evening just like they aired in the UK. The only thing is that we're on different ends of the planet, so our evenings are at very different times. So the episode would air on the UK, and us here in the States would just sorta have to hang out for most of the day until it aired here. And then when you actually got to watch the episodes, holy ad breaks. Oh my gosh, the ad breaks. See, in the UK, folks have to pay a license fee to watch this channel. As such, there really aren't commercials, but there's no such fee here, so to make up for that, ads galore. Ads added into a show that was not built to have ads, thus horribly ruining the pace of certain scenes and making the show feel exhausting to watch. The number of ad breaks are so egregious that they can make you sit there for twice as long as you would be without them. I need you all to understand, I had to watch Legend of the Sea Devils like this. Yeah, I could just use a DVR to record the episode and watch it once it's done airing, but if it's an episode like of Regeneration or something, gosh dang it, I wanted to see that hours ago when all the British people did. One of my favorite odd commercial moments was in the episode Revolution of the Daleks. The episode ends with a scene that calls back to the very first scene of the first episode of this era, but in America, this scene happened after a several minute long commercial break. So my family and I spent a hot second confused if this was still part of that same episode or if they had like just started airing a rerun of the older episode. By the way, if it sounds like I'm complaining a lot, I promise this will provide a lot of context for later. This whole video is not just me complaining about international airing practices, although part of it will be. It also didn't help that this era of the show was commonly panned for having some of the show's worst episodes, which is an opinion that wasn't uncommon to find regardless of where in the world you were. And for a minute there, the plan wasn't to fix things up with a new creative direction, it was to put an end to it all. There were no plans for a new showrunner and no new Doctor after 13 Phoenix forced her way into the sunset. They shot the final episode without showing who Jodie Whittaker would be regenerating into. Only later did a different studio go in and shoot the back half of the regeneration with Jodie Whittaker's successor, which was actually former Doctor David Tennant. You see, through the strategy of dumping several large bags with dollar signs on them onto the desk of Russell T Davies, I'm sure, the show suddenly had a future. Russell T Davies, or RTD, was the first showrunner for the revival of Doctor Who back in 2005, largely starring David Tennant, which had been by far the most popular era of the show. I mean, here in America, it's maybe a little more common to see people favor the era right after, where Matt Smith was the Doctor, since the show started airing on BBC America then, but still. This news was soon followed by the announcement that the BBC had joined forces with the Walt Disney Corporation and would be airing new episodes on Disney Plus instead of BBC America. And everyone in my neck of the woods freaking cheered, since at least it would now be possible to watch the show here without ads the second it became available, either through a Disney Plus ad-free plan or an ad blocker or something. something. As for the deal itself, as far as we know, it looked like this. Disney would partially fund 26 episodes and then market and distribute them in all regions outside of the UK. It was up to RTD to decide how to divvy up these 26 episodes. They were divided as so. 3 episodes to be a set of anniversary specials for the show's 60th anniversary, starring David Tennant before the real new Doctor Ncuti Gatwa took over. 2 annual Christmas specials, 2 8-episode seasons, and 5 episodes for a spin-off. And it was just those 26. Any additional content that the BBC made would not be included on Disney+. So things like the Children in Need special, Doctor Who Unleashed, or Tales of the TARDIS were only streamable in the UK. Thankfully, most of that did end up eventually being made available on YouTube worldwide, but Tales of the TARDIS is only available in the UK, likely because those episodes mostly contain footage of Classic Who, which is totally stranded on like Pluto TV or something. This part's a little iffy, but it seems like the BBC had actually done production on the first 3 episodes that would become part of this deal before the deal itself was actually made. My speculation for this is that the deal was not announced until those 3 episodes were already shot, and oftentimes these sorts of deals get publicly announced pretty quickly after they are formed, usually because of like shareholders and stuff. Also, there is no known information about any direct involvement Disney had with the actual content of those episodes. Not to mention that the BBC's Twitter account specifically for Doctor Who on BBC America was promoting those 3 episodes up until the announcement of the Disney deal, at which point the account was retired altogether. I wonder if we're gonna see any necromancy there in the near future. Now, I think the biggest question on everyone's mind was how much involvement Disney was going to have in the show. Because while they were solely in charge of marketing and distributing the show internationally from the UK, they still had a seat at the table when it came to the actual production of the show. Unfortunately, we aren't given much insight into this. The only confirmed case we have of a change that Disney requested was in the 4th episode of the deal, The Church on Ruby Road, where a scene was added per their request via reshoots of the Doctor saving character Ruby Sunday, thus having him appear in the episode several minutes before originally planned. That line was also added in via reshoots because I realized in the edit that I flubbed it originally, could you tell? The change was requested because Disney felt like the show would work better if the titular character appeared sooner. Frankly, I was totally cool with this particular change since this first scene with Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor is a really awesome one, and also dang, I was watching too much Torchwood at the time because I seriously thought that this guy would be Andy for some reason. That said, through the power of deductive reasoning, you can observe another change in the episodes that I suspect were shot after the Disney deal was made. They had a higher budget and had no shame in using it. Those first 3 episodes kept a pretty small scope. The Star Beast mostly takes place on a couple city blocks with one whole tiny spaceship in the mix. Wild Blue Yonder takes place in a much larger spaceship, but that thing is mostly just hallways and we are fully locked into that one location for a majority of the episode. And then The Giggle mostly takes place in one room with one quick trip to the toy maker's spooky hallway. These 3 episodes, even The Giggle, which is supposed to be a finale of sorts, are kept very contained as far as locations go. But to move forward 1 episode, and now we're jumping across rooftops, we're on a floating goblin ship fighting a big CGI goblin guy. The finale of the first 3 episodes had a climax that was just a game of catch between 2 dudes, or debatably 3 dudes? 2 dudes and 1 time-traveling version of one of the other dudes, there we go. But the climax of either 2 later season finales with Disney funding sees the Doctor fighting more big CGI alien monsters like he's in the MCU or something. The show felt much less restrained and as such, much less creative in many ways. That is definitely not to say that the episodes or even the finales produced with Disney budget were bad. I'm probably in the minority of people that liked a majority of this run of the show, but it is still an observation that I noticed. We're deep in speculation here, but if this went down how I suspect it did, then I would put a major point of the blame here at bad circumstances and a lack of experience on RTD's part. It's hard to find exact numbers on this stuff, but it seems that Doctor Who got a budget increase of several £1,000,000, whatever those are, and I'm not sure that RTD has ever worked on something with such a high budget before. I've tried to look this up, but I came up mostly empty on budget reports for his other shows. If you're more in the know here, please let me know know in the comments. But I'm getting the vibe that Disney Doctor Who was the highest budget thing he's ever had to produce. And it's a producer's job to make sure that they spend every last dollar of their budget, or their financiers will get the idea that the job can be done for less money and slash their budgets moving forward. Normally not an actual issue, since finding enough money for a production is normally the headache, but when you have too much money, you gotta dump it somewhere. So sure, why not dump a stupid amount of money into VFX? You have it, and it needs to get spent, and it's really easy to fit that in when you're both a producer and the lead writer. Also, I really did mean it when I said a stupid amount of money, as in dumb, as in unintelligent. Let's look at this shot from the episode Wish World. I've seen it said multiple times that this looks like it was filmed on a green screen, despite the fact that it totally wasn't. And it absolutely is not the only shot in this era that stuck out to me like a sore thumb because of this. Why do these shots look like this? Cause the lighting be flat. You may recognize this technique from our good friends over at Marvel Studios. Basically, if the lighting's super flat, it's way easier to change whatever you want in post via visual effects, which is useful for when they start shooting without having character designs nailed because concept art wasn't done yet, or just need to straight up change major parts of the story because the script isn't done yet. Obviously, that sort of method not only severely overstresses and crunches VFX artists, but also just creates an uglier product, since lighting is pretty key to making movies and shows look good. My film degree is going great, by the way. Thanks for asking. Now, I'm not saying that Doctor Who is doing all of this specifically, but I am saying that their production is clearly taking some bad notes from studios like Marvel Studios, and the show is looking worse for it. Things like this are signs of a poor allocation of funds. Having too much money to work with can make the final product just look plain worse if you aren't experienced enough to use it properly. You gotta figure things out in pre-production, not post-production. Both the people watching your show and the people making your show would thank you. Marvel Studio projects like Fantastic Four First Steps, Thunderbolts, and the post-reform episodes of Daredevil Born Again were clearly made with a strong vision in mind from the start, and it shows. It's possible that the past 18 episodes of Doctor Who were not made with such a vision in mind from the pre-production stages. Again, I am speculating. I do not know this for a fact, but it is a conclusion that I can draw, especially when you have weird continuity errors on a scripting level.
Oh, you know, I'm single, no parents, no children. I have been a housewife.
Things like that cropping up tell me that because of the increase in budget, the episodes weren't totally figured out in pre-production or were too open to letting things change during production. Again, I feel like it's worth noting that I did really like this era of the show, but just like many things that I love, they are flawed, and those flaws can be very interesting to discuss. I know I'm talking a lot of Marvel here, and believe me, I love to talk Marvel, but I do want to shoot down a possible misconception that I've seen before, that the very clear MCU inspiration in these past 2 seasons was some sort of Disney mandate. I can see how someone would come to that conclusion. Look, we have an Avengers Tower, Wishworld is just budget WandaVision, etc. Again, technically no one's come out and said anything, but I'm very confident in saying that this is purely Russell T Davies. This dude freaking loves Marvel crap. Best example I can point to is the character of Captain Jack Harkness, introduced in 2005, being named after then primarily Fantastic Four character Agatha Harkness. That era of the show was very defined by its use of spin-offs and how they created an interconnected universe of stories. This largely predates the MCU, but was already something that the Marvel Comics had been doing for years. And before he was asked to come back to Doctor Who, RTD was very vocal about the show needing to take more cues from the MCU, and saying that the show had the full potential to build a shared universe just like the MCU. And to be honest, I still fully agree with that idea. I still find the late 2000s Doctor Who shared universe to be one of the strongest on-screen shared universes out there. And I think it's a huge shame that he wasn't able to recreate this successfully in the 2020s with this new era of the show. But why not? What went wrong? I've just been talking about the production here. What about the final products themselves? Well, sit tight a little bit longer. We'll get there. Because while we now have a pretty strong understanding of how Disney impacted the production of the episodes, remember that their main job was international distribution. So what was that like? With love but honesty, it was just a mess. I mean, I'm pretty much entirely focusing on the US watching experience here, but God forbid you live in a country that doesn't have Disney Plus, because Disney still had the distribution rights for your country. They just won't distribute it. But even in America, it was a mess from the second Disney got involved through no control of their own. Here in America, Doctor Who is hard to watch in one place, even disregarding the classic show, which is currently all on Tubi and Pluto TV, but was on BritBox, I think? Yeah, disregarding all of that, Doctor Who was streaming at the time on HBO Max, formerly HBO Max, soon to be Netflix, please keep up. I remember when I first started watching the show, it was actually on Amazon Prime, and every season was on its own listing, and the specials weren't all grouped in. So when I first watched the show, I wound up going from the next Doctor to the 11th hour, and just thought that the next Doctor was somehow David Tennant's last episode. This isn't at all relevant to our Disney discussion, I just wanted to share. But the BBC's deal with HBO Max would not end until after both seasons of Disney Doctor Who had aired, meaning that Disney Plus would not be able to stream any episode of the show released prior to 2023. That's not particularly great because you lose a big marketing angle with not being able to have the first 13 series of your new show on your service. To counteract this, someone decided that the episodes produced from 2023 onward should be considered technically a new show. This wasn't Doctor Who Series 14, it's Season 1. Okay, sure, it's a soft reboot, sure. That'll probably tick off the British, who have practically every episode of the show on their streaming service, so they just have Doctor Who listed 3 different times, but oh well, it's all good, right? No. This caused even more confusion. First of all, seasons versus series. When it comes to Doctor Who, seasons were used to refer to episodes of the 20th century classic show, while series referred to the rebooted 21st century show. So Season 1, Episode 1 would refer to 1963's An Unearthly Child, while Series 1, Episode 1 would refer to 2005's Rose. But now, Season 1, Episode 1 could refer to An Unearthly Child or an episode of Disney Plus Doctor Who. I really thought this was dumb. Like, it doesn't really matter that much, but come on! At least name it something other than season. Personally, I would have much preferred the 2024 season be called Doctor Who Chapter 1 or something like that. Really lean into the fact that it's on a streaming service, you know? Make it sound like more of an event. But who cares about the name? From Disney's marketing angle, you're supposed to just start the show here, so don't worry about the older episodes. This could totally work since that's what Series 1, Episode 1 was basically like, but, we're not starting with the new Season 1, Episode 1. We're starting with the 360th anniversary specials, which are absolutely not jumping on points. As such, Disney understandably hardly marketed these 3 episodes since they're only really going to be enjoyed by fans that have watched most of the previous seasons. Okay, but that's fine, right? I mean, I'm sure some people will get confused, but it's kind of what you have to do when you're stuck with these 3 episodes. And these episodes are designed to act as a sort of soft series finale to the previous Doctor Who show anyway. The 4th episode, The Church on Ruby Road, is where things are really supposed to start up, right? And Disney did appropriately market the show for this, in my opinion. They even had the TARDIS just hanging out over in Disney Springs. I had the opportunity to see this in person, and I didn't, and I will forever bear that shame. Then when it came to actually airing the episode, Disney? What the heck is this? No, seriously, what? Okay, so the 360th specials weren't grouped together on Disney Plus. They were all completely separate entries on the platform, but their icons are still numbered as specials 1, 2, and 3. Okay, fine. Hey, special 2 lists Susan Twist as main cast, despite the fact that she isn't revealed to be an important character for another 7 episodes. Isn't that kind of a spoiler? And then for some reason, Church on Ruby Road is listed as special 4. Who in their right mind that doesn't already know what's up is going to assume that this is the episode that you start with? Like, you're just shooting yourself in the foot for no reason. Oh, but don't worry, when Season 1 actually starts, they'll list The Church on Ruby Road as its Episode 1. Oh, okay. They won't remove the old listing, though. They'll just have both. The same episode uploaded onto the site twice. And hey, that means that there's actually 4 Doctor Who Episode 1s now. Pro tip, if you want people to watch your show, make it as stupidly easy as possible for them to do so. Definitely don't leave any room for a casual audience to get confused on what they're supposed to click on. Like, this is not quite Amazon Prime bad, but it's still bad. Anyway, Disney wasn't done getting their licks in when it came to just plain listing the episodes in a competent manner, because when the second Christmas special aired the following Christmas, it was labeled as Special 5. And then it didn't even get grouped in with Season 2 when that started airing. To stress, if you were in the know, this wasn't like impeding your ability to find the next episode. But the way that these episodes were listed created this completely needless barrier to entry for new fans to hop on. And none of that even touches the release timing for these episodes. Oh boy, what another mess. And this one was so bad it got people ticked globally. The 360th anniversary specials aired on the UK at 6:30 p.m. and here where I am at the US East Coast at 1:30 p.m. Not bad. Similar time for the next episode too. Then their 5th episode, the real season 1 premiere, aired in the US East Coast at 7 p.m. and in the UK at midnight. Come on, there's only one episode of this whole era that could have gotten away with that, and that wasn't even in this season. Then the next Christmas special hopped back over to the previous time slot before season 2 went for 8 a.m. in the UK and flipping 3 a.m. for people in my town. Except for the finale, which went back to something resembling the season 1 airtimes. I should clarify that the UK technically had like 2 airtimes for each episode. What I just discussed was the time at which new episodes would get listed on streaming, but the following evening they would air on TV for the first time. For this discussion, we're largely focusing on the streaming airtime, since that's when the episode is made available first and to the most people. And we're largely focusing on what would have been the best time of the day to list these episodes. Now, I'm super sure my opinion on this subject just plain doesn't matter. Most British discussion I've seen on the subject can seem, from an outsider perspective, for lack of a better term, just plain elitist. I have seen downright hostility towards anyone that wanted a better airtime in their time zone because they did the terrible, terrible sin of living somewhere else. Now, understandably, there's going to be no perfect solution for this since time zones are lame and cringe, but we have to deal with them. Still, no matter how you slice it, someone's getting screwed over. Either the episode isn't released simultaneously worldwide, or you pick a time zone that people in, I don't know, Uganda are fast asleep. Oh wait, that won't matter because they don't have Disney Plus anyway and have no means of watching the show. If you ask me, which no one did, I'd say that the time slot they went for all of the specials was the most solid. Apparently, it's a big British tradition to watch Doctor Who in the evening, so let them keep that, and then it airs simultaneously in America while most of the country is actually awake. Oh, and commit to your airtime. Stop hopping to a new airtime every couple episodes. That's super annoying. Stop it. Now, I know that this sort of release timing still screws over countries like Australia, which I know have sizable Doctor Who fan bases, but I think this still gets the most people within the BBC and Disney's target audience able to watch the show on release. The release windowing was a mess, but unlike most of the other messes with international distribution, this one wasn't needlessly made by Disney. Not that those didn't exist, and didn't probably negatively impact the show. Now, there was a recent article by Deadline that talks about the deal's ending. They don't give sources for a lot of their quotes, and as such, I find myself a little skeptical of some of their claims. The article states that the show didn't do well enough on Disney Plus for Disney, but by my research, the show frankly did fine. Doctor Who is pretty consistently doing numbers on the streaming service, rarely top of the charts, but still pretty good, especially for the oddball release situation it got placed in. Still, of all their points, this one does seem to be the most credible, so let's put a pin in this one and come back to it later. One quote states that Ncuti Gatwa was a bad ambassador for the brand, which is just plain baloney. One quote states that the show was axed because of woke. Surely Disney would never cancel a show for reasons like that. This is Disney we're talking about. Also, I don't even know what woke is. Isn't that like a Spider-Man character? But here's my guess. Literally none of that matters. This deal was cooked from the start. And no, it's not because of any of those reasons listed earlier, or because the episodes themselves smell like used underwear, or because RTD is the Antichrist or something. Again, for all of my complaining, I stand by that a majority of this era was just straight bangers. No, this deal was cooked because Disney Plus itself is actively cooked. In May of 2024, the same month that Disney Doctor Who Season 1 began airing, Bob Iger stated that Disney Plus had lost them $4 billion because they were trying to release too much content at once. As such, Disney was severely pulling back on what it was outputting. Lots of projects from the big boys in Marvel and Star Wars were getting put on ice. And do you really think that the mild success that was Doctor Who is going to survive that? Yeah, the show is pretty consistently in the top 5 over on Disney Plus, but if you're cutting back all the fat, it's pretty hard to justify a show that wasn't number 1. Especially since, unlike all of the other cut programming, Disney didn't even own it. They were just licensing this. If most of their own projects weren't worth the money, funding someone else's project definitely wouldn't be. As such, I found the marketing for Doctor Who Season 2 to be much quieter than the first, first, because by that point Disney had already clearly made their choice regarding the show. And in recent months, I've just plain found that Disney doesn't care about the show at all. I mean, apparently Disney Plus listings really matter, since for the MCU, that's the primary authority on the timeline and what's canon and what isn't. But for Doctor Who, it's not worth looking closely enough to remove this screenshot from a scrapped part of the story from the Reality Wars listing, thus causing just so much discourse. Disney seemingly went from being very excited about the show and welcoming it into the family with open arms to just plain forgetting that it was in the house at all and never having a plate for it ready at dinner. This is a great analogy. I want no comments about it. We can tell this because the BBC was clearly pulling their hair out over how this deal was being handled in its final year. When the show was just starting out on Disney Plus, RTD spoke super optimistically of its future past the 2 commissioned seasons. He would tease plot points from past Season 2, and Season 2 was clearly written to directly lead into at least one more season. It's my belief that while Disney hadn't officially greenlit the BBC for episodes past their 26, there was a verbal agreement that they would almost definitely be getting more episodes and that they would get the official greenlight shortly after Season 1 had finished airing. Because RTD said that he had the intent to make sure that Doctor Who was an annual show. He had to have been confident in that claim for a reason, and I suspect it's because Disney gave him that confidence. Like, this dude was already writing the scripts. He wasn't even getting paid yet and he was already doing the work. Bro thought he was gonna get paid. But of course, after restructuring their content output, Disney kinda just forgot about Doctor Who, which led to some big problems. Lead actor Ncuti Gatwa was on standby ready to film Season 3. The BBC even had an internal date for when they would start shooting, which he accidentally said on a talk show before it got cut out of the broadcast version. I vividly remember experiencing the joys of London public transit when that news hit, if you're curious. But Disney likely just wouldn't give the green light or a red light. They just did nothing. And Ncuti Gatwa is a big-time up-and-coming actor. He can't just twiddle his thumbs and wait around for Disney to get off their butts and send one email. So he did what he had to do and left the show. The Reality Wars ending was changed completely to end with his doctor regenerating into Billie Piper for some reason, instead of the teaser for Season 3's arc that they had originally shot, which is a huge bummer. Season 3 was clearly meant to focus on OG Doctor Who character Susan, who had already started making cameos in Season 2, and Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor clearly needed one more season to cook. Like, he was great in the 2 that we got, but you could see this manipulative side of him building across his run, and I was really looking forward to seeing how that was going to be handled in what realistically would have probably been his final season. But no, he had to come out and give some lame excuse about how his knees are tired or whatever, and wow, his knees sure recovered fast. And it wasn't until October 2025 that the BBC spammed Disney's inbox enough, I guess, for Disney to officially issue out the breakup text. Now the BBC could actually start production on new episodes since now they knew what the funding will look like. But because Disney waited around for so long, the next episode is coming out exactly 1 year later than originally planned, thus completely janking up the main narrative and any plans for expansion via spin-offs that existed. Oh yeah, those 5 spin-off episodes. Just to stick it to us here in the States once more, those last 5 episodes of the deal will not air until sometime in 2026, despite the BBC airing them on December 7th of 2025. This deal got so bad that we're somehow back to how episodes got released here in the first RTD era. And yes, I know, literally all of this international nonsense can be easily bypassed just by using a VPN, lying about paying the license fee, and hopping on the BBC iPlayer, which in case I visit the country again, I've obviously never done. But literally no casual fan is going to want to do that. It solves most problems I've gone over for people like me, but telling random people I meet to VPN their way into the BBC iPlayer just to give the show a shot is a tough sell. So in review, who's to blame for everything? No one person or group. Disney's influence having any negative effects on the content of the episodes themselves was mostly due to a grave misuse of budget. The show having such wacky wild distribution was totally Disney's fault, but weirdly it isn't the thing that actually made the show not a success. What ended the deal was a bunch of other dumb things Disney did before Doctor Who even entered the picture. The fallout of these dumb things led to a massive mess getting created within the ongoing narrative as of the show's current most recent episode. So what happens now? Well, to keep things focused on the UK for right now, the BBC now has the green light to keep making more episodes. They'll likely be made cheaper, which may paradoxically make them look better. RTD will write at least one more episode. It's not clear if he'll stay. I imagine that it's not really locked in yet. His overarching storyline had a massive wrench thrown into it, and common consensus poo-poos on basically everything he's done for the past 2 seasons, so I can't say that him leaving would be completely unwarranted. That said, he's had to deal with his arc suddenly being made a mess before. His very first season on the show also ended with a surprise regeneration and a pivot of storyline. Also, since I don't really have a better place to say it, it's very likely that composer Murray Gold will also not be coming back after this season, since I believe that he stated before that he was going to be leaving when Ncuti Gatwa left. I don't have an exact source for this. I think it's in a Doctor Who magazine, but so take this with a grain of salt. That said, since Ncuti Gatwa 100% definitely left early, that may mean that Murray Gold will not leave early. Time will tell. Regardless, the BBC will still make new seasons of the show after this point, but they're probably going to be very wary of any streaming partner. If the biggest entertainment company in the world was such a pain to work with, then who could you trust? But you do still need to distribute the show internationally. So either you just revert back to airing the episodes on BBC America and I scream and writhe as I'm sent back to Commercialville, or you partner with a different streaming service. But any streaming service that you try to partner with is going to have a big problem of itself to handle when it comes to international distribution. Remember I said that HBO Max's deal has just expired. So currently, there is absolutely no means to stream Doctor Who series 1 through 13 outside of the UK without buying the seasons outright or getting intimate with your favorite VPN. And for the record, that also extends to most previously released spin-offs as well. For you, I don't know, class enjoyers out there. So the BBC can likely offer any streaming service the ability to have that massive back catalog of episodes along with any new ones that they make. But oopsie doopsie, 21 episodes are just going to be plain missing since they're likely not going anywhere from Disney Plus for the foreseeable future. And any streamer that picks up the show is going to land themselves right back into Disney's predicament with the 60th anniversary specials, since I'll bet my TARDIS that 2026's Christmas special is going to speed through trying to tie up loose ends that would have been in a season 3, or at least will directly follow up from the Disney Plus episodes. And that's without getting into the whole conundrum of, okay, so these episodes are going to be series 1 through 13 and then that ends. These episodes will start at season 3. Oh, what's that? You want it to be called season 1? Okay, sure, we can start the season numbering over again. But all in all, I do hope that this show does find a new streaming partner, one that can actually help support the show and will stick with it. My personal hope is for Apple TV Plus to pick it up. Out of every streaming service right now, they are the latest hotshot that just seems to know what they're doing. They hit it big earlier this year with Severance Season 2, screw all of you that didn't have to wait since Season 1, and they're hitting it big again right now with Pluribus. Apple TV has a reputation for sticking it out with shows for however long it takes for them to actually become successful. I could see this being a pretty prime candidate for a new international home for Doctor Who. And that's where we're at now. But tell me what you think. How would you like to see the show come back? If you were in the producer's chair, how would you have handled the past 2 seasons differently? Do you think if a time traveler moved a chair, Carla Sunday would have just actually killed Ruby? If you're British and you put up with my dumb voice this whole time, thanks so much. Leave a comment telling me how I did. Few pieces of housekeeping before I head out. 1, guys, BlackJupiter hit 10,000 subscribers. Whoa! Genuinely, I don't even know what to say. All of us here are so beyond elated to have been able to hit that milestone. I will say that in recent months, there hasn't been a lot of activity from the channel on account of most of us are college students and we kind of need our degrees. But still, thank you so much to anyone who's ever watched any of our videos or interacted with the channel. It means so much to all of us, especially to our patrons, who get such wonderful perks as being able to watch videos early and not getting charged when we don't release videos in a month. That's right, if we skip out on like half a year, you just get to hang out for half a year free of charge. Our wonderful, awesome patrons are Bacon Insert Noun, Kaiser, Willpower784, Wonderland Snack, The Missing Samurai, Venforia, and Blake Jekyll. Again, thank you all so much for watching this year. I'm really looking forward to next year's videos, where maybe I'll face some of my demons. That'll hopefully make sense later.